Welcome back to WION World as One. Thank you so much for staying with us. You're watching World DNA with me, Hem Kaur Saroya, and here's a look at all the top stories that we're tracking for you right now. US President Donald Trump threatens new sanctions and tariffs on Russia over its bombardments of Ukraine after previously suspending US aid to Kyiv in a stated bid to encourage diplomacy.
The history of the world, but we have a situation with Iran that something's going to happen very soon, very, very soon.
Donald Trump says something will happen with Iran very soon, adding that he hopes it's a peace deal that blocks Tehran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. Donald Trump says he could impose reciprocal tariffs on Canadian dairy and lumber within days. This comes after Trump provided Canada and Mexico temporary reprieve on Thursday. South Carolina man convicted of murdering the ex-girlfriend's parents put to death by the firing squad in the first such execution in the United States in 15 years. A war monitoring group says Syrian security forces execute 162 civilians, including women and children, have ousted President Assad's Alawite minority. People allegedly killed in five separate incidents in coastal regions. Organization of Islamic Cooperation adopts the Arab League's counter-proposal to US President Donald Trump's plan to take over Gaza and displace its residents. Morgan Stanley cut its 2025 growth forecast, citing higher tariffs and a tight labor market fueling inflation. Goldman Sachs also trims its 2025 GDP forecast and raises the recession probability to 20%. Outgoing IOC President Thomas Bach hints that a ceasefire or peace agreement would pave the way for Russia's return from its ongoing ban. The IOC suspended Russia from competing at a team due to their invasion of Ukraine. Now, according to a war monitor, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, Syrian security forces have killed 162 people, including women and children of ousted President Bashar al-Assad's Alawite minority. This comes after supporters of the ousted President Bashar al-Assad allegedly launched a deadly attack in the coastal regions of Syria. Syria's interim president Ahmad al-Shara has vowed to pursue the remnants of the ousted Assad regime and bring them to trial. He's also urged insurgents to lay down their arms before it's too late. Syrian authorities claim that remnants loyal to Assad regime launched a well-planned attack on their forces in the coastal region, which is predominantly Alawite. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said that more than 180 people had been killed in 2 days of violence.
We will continue to pursue the remnants of the fallen regime, those who refused but to continue their oppression and tyranny, those who committed crimes against the people, and those who seek to undermine security and civil peace. We will bring them to a fair court.
Syrians in Damascus and Aleppo are rallying in support of the new Syrian regime as it battles against Bashar al-Assad supporters. Protesters are calling an iron fist measure against anyone who wants to destabilize the country. Meanwhile, the German Foreign Ministry has urged all sides to avoid a spiral of violence, calling for peaceful solutions and dialogue. The UN Special Envoy for Syria, Geir Pedersen, has expressed alarm over the clashes and killings, calling for immediate restraint from all parties and full protection of civilians in line with international law. The UN Security Council has been briefed on the chemical weapons situation in Syria. Just after saying it's easier to work with Russia than Ukraine on peace talks, Donald Trump has threatened new sanctions and tariffs on Russia over its bombardment of Ukraine. This after previously suspending US aid to Kyiv in a stated bid to encourage diplomacy. Now, Trump's warning to Moscow, published on his Truth Social platform, comes hours after Russia launched a massive drone and missile attack on Ukrainian energy facilities. Trump wrote that based on the fact that Russia is absolutely pounding Ukraine on the battlefield right now, he's strongly considering large-scale sanctions and tariffs on Russia until a ceasefire and final settlement agreement on peace is reached. Soon after Trump said that he finds it easier to deal with Russia than Ukraine in efforts to end the war, he added that he trusts and believes that Vladimir Putin, reiterating his previous statement that Ukraine does not have the cards.
I think we're doing very well with Russia. But right now they're bombing the hell out of Ukraine, and I'm finding it more difficult, frankly, to deal with Ukraine. And they don't have the cards. They don't have the cards. As you know, we're meeting in Saudi Arabia on sometime next week, early. And we're talking, I find that in terms of getting a final settlement, it may be easier dealing with Russia, which is surprising because they have all the cards. I mean, they're bombing the hell out of them right now.
Despite threatening new sanctions on Russia, Trump said he understood why Russian forces had inflicted a massive bombing campaign across Ukraine overnight. Trump continues to push Ukraine hard and ordered a pause in U.S. military and intelligence assistance to Kyiv earlier this week. When asked if Putin is taking advantage of the pause, Trump shrugged off the impact of intel sharing pause and said that Putin's doing what anybody in that position would be doing right now.
Do you, Mr. President, think that Vladimir Putin is taking advantage of the U.S. pause right now on intelligence and military aid to Ukraine?
No, I actually think he's doing what anybody else would do. I think he wants to get it stopped and settled, and I think he's hitting them harder than he's been hitting them. And I think probably anybody in that position would be doing that right now.
Without U.S. intelligence, Ukraine's ability to strike inside Russia and defend itself from bombardments is significantly diminished. Washington has also now suspended Ukraine's access to U.S. government-purchased commercial satellite imagery. Ukrainian forces had been using the satellite imagery for tracking the movement of Russian troops and assessing damage after strikes. As cracks widen in Kyiv's partnership with Washington, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andrei Sybiga held a phone call with U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and said that Ukraine wants the war to end and the United States is essential to achieving lasting peace. President Vladimir Zelensky has also reaffirmed that Ukraine wants peace as soon as possible, ahead of talks with U.S. officials in Saudi Arabia next week. Zelensky has said that Ukraine is determined to be very constructive, adding that the theme is peace as soon as possible and security as reliable as possible. As American and Ukrainian officials meet in Jeddah, Europe's 5 main military powers will meet in Paris to discuss support for Ukraine. France's defense minister will reportedly hold talks with counterparts from Britain, Germany, Italy and Poland on Wednesday. And for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report. Listen to this.
In a major shift, U.S. President Donald Trump is now considering imposing sweeping sanctions and tariffs on Russia unless a ceasefire and final peace deal are both reached in Ukraine. The announcement was made by the president on Truth Social and is in stark contrast with his recent rhetoric, which has more or less been aligned with Vladimir Putin's framing of the war. Now, the timing is also notable. It comes as Russia escalates its bombardment on Ukrainian infrastructures. Experts say that this isn't just about diplomacy, it's also about leverage. The Trump team recently halted U.S. military aid to Ukraine, pressuring Kyiv to come to the negotiating table. But after weeks of tension with President Volodymyr Zelensky, now we are seeing a harder stance on Russia, for now at least. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
Now, U.S. President Donald Trump has said that he could impose reciprocal tariffs on Canadian dairy and lumber within days. A move set to fuel tensions with Ottawa just days after an earlier wave of levies. This comes after Trump provided Canada and Mexico temporary reprieve on Thursday, exempting goods coming in from both countries under a North American trade pact. But he has vowed broader reciprocal tariffs as soon as the 2nd of April, aimed at rectifying practices that Washington deems unfair.
Because Canada has been ripping us off for years on tariffs for lumber and for dairy products. 250%, nobody ever talks about that. 250% tariff, which is taking advantage of our farmers, so that's not going to happen anymore. They'll be met with the exact same tariff unless they drop it.
In an earlier interview with Fox Business, Trump said the tariffs affecting Canada and Mexico could rise in the future. When asked if companies might get more clarity on his trade policies, Trump said, "I think so, but you know, the tariffs could go up as time goes by." Since taking office in January, Trump has unleashed a series of tariffs and threats targeting U.S. allies and adversaries alike, including duties of up to 25% on imports from Canada and Mexico. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has said that her country will not tax products coming in from the United States due to the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement.
We do not tax products that come from the United States because we have a trade agreement. So, if we do not tax what comes from the United States, then the United States will also not tax what comes from Mexico, because it is reciprocity.
Mexican Economy Minister Marcelo Ebrard said that they were expecting for up to 90% of companies operating within the USMCA to comply with the agreement. Furthermore, Brazil and the United States are engaged in talks on import tariffs announced by President Donald Trump just days before they are due to take effect. Ties between the countries have been strained since Trump said that he would impose a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports from the 12th of March, prompting President Lula da Silva to vow reciprocity. Brazil is the second largest exporter of steel to the United States and Canada, sending it 4.08 million tons of metal in 2024. Meanwhile, India is working on increasing market access and reducing trade barriers with the US through a trade pact. Indian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal told reporters that the deal would deepen supply chain integration between the two countries.
Our objective through the BTA is to strengthen and deepen India-US two-way trade across goods and services, increase market access, reduce tariff and non-tariff barriers, and deepen supply chain integration between the two countries. So that is how we look at the issue of tariff as far as India-US is concerned.
And after a meeting between Trump and the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi last month, the two countries agreed to resolve tariff row and work on the first segment of a deal by the fall of 2025, aiming for bilateral trade worth $500 billion by 2030. Indian Trade Minister Piyush Goyal has been on a nearly week-long trip to the United States and on Tuesday met Lutnick to pursue trade talks.
Interesting period indeed. I watched. I got to see how not to do things, and.
Now it seems the sky is not the limit when it comes to administrative powers bestowed on American billionaire Elon Musk. US President Donald Trump has told his cabinet secretaries that they will have the final say on staffing and policy for their agencies, not Elon Musk and the Department of Government Efficiency. On Truth Social, Trump said that he's instructed his cabinet members to work in tandem with DOGE on spending and workforce reductions. Justifying his decision, Trump said the secretaries know about the people working for their departments.
So I had a meeting, and I said, I want the cabinet members go first, keep all the people you want, everybody that you need. And it would be better if they were there for 2 years instead of 2 weeks, because in 2 years they'll know the people better. But I want them to do the best job they can. When we have good people, that's precious, that's very important, and we want them to keep the good people. And so we're going to be watching them, and Elon and the group are going to be watching them. And if they can cut, it's better. And if they don't cut, then Elon will do the cutting.
Now, the president's message seems to be the first move to rein in power, according to Musk, as DOGE works towards cutting federal staffing and spending. However, when directly asked by reporters whether DOGE and Musk are moving too fast, Trump said he thinks they've done an amazing job.
No, I think they've done an amazing job. They've done an amazing job, and look at what they found. I read it the other night in the speech. I mean, they found these things where billions of dollars has been poured down the drain to things. That's not about people, that's about contracts where billions and billions of dollars was just thrown out the window. It probably got kickbacks.
While Musk is not the formal administrator of DOGE, the SpaceX and Tesla CEO is directing operations and even attended the first cabinet meeting of Trump's second term. The body's cost-cutting campaign has faced increasing resistance on multiple fronts, including court rulings, pressure from lawmakers, and sporadic protests. In court filings, the Trump administration claimed that Musk is no more than a senior White House advisor who can only advise the president and communicate the president's directives. The administration claimed Musk is not a DOGE employee. The White House finally named Amy Gleason as DOGE's administrator. However, a Trump government lawyer during a court hearing said that he did not know who was leading DOGE prior to Gleason being named, which prompted the judge to express skepticism and call the matter highly suspicious. The legal debate over Musk's role in the White House intensified after Trump announced in his Congress speech that DOGE is headed by Musk. Trump's comments are being cited as evidence that Musk should be held liable for DOGE's actions. Now, the race to establish human presence on the moon has just received a big boost. India's Chandrayaan-3 mission has uncovered evidence suggesting lunar water may be more accessible than scientists previously believed, potentially revolutionizing plans for long-term lunar habitation. Take a look.
Beneath the dusty lunar surface lies an unexpected abundance of trapped water ice, potentially transforming humanity's future in space. India's groundbreaking Chandrayaan-3 mission has shattered previous assumptions about lunar resources, revealing a far more promising landscape for would-be settlers. This discovery could accelerate plans for permanent lunar bases by decades. India's ambitious lunar mission has uncovered compelling evidence that water ice exists in far greater quantities and more accessible locations than scientists previously believed possible. The mission's lander, which touched down near the Moon's South Pole region in August 2023, recorded surprising temperature data that has scientists rethinking lunar water distribution models. The breakthrough came when researchers applied this temperature data to advanced computational models, calibrated to match the precise topographical and illumination conditions at the landing site. Their findings, published in the Nature journal, reveal that countless sloped areas at higher latitudes facing the poles could harbor significant ice deposits just below the surface. Chandrayaan-3's discovery represents a triumph for India's space program and a crucial contribution to humanity's space exploration roadmap. As NASA, ESA, and private companies race to establish permanent lunar outposts, this new understanding of lunar water distribution could prove to be the key that unlocks sustained human presence beyond Earth.
Now, shares of Nintendo and other major gaming companies took a significant hit today following the announcement of high US tariffs on Chinese imports. With many investors pulling back from the sector, we take a closer look at how these tariff changes are affecting the gaming industry. Take a look.
Gaming stocks were usually the bright spot amid global market jitters. But the uncertainty is making investors put their consoles down. Shares of Nintendo dropped by as much as 9.8% in Tokyo, marking its largest intraday loss in 7 months. This sharp decline follows concerns over new US tariffs imposed by President Donald Trump. The tariffs, which raised duties on Chinese imports from 10 to 20%, have sparked fears that gaming consoles could face higher prices in the US, the world's largest market for video game hardware. As most consoles are either manufactured in China or rely on Chinese suppliers, the tariff hikes could result in increased import costs, potentially driving up the price of these products. The impact of the tariffs wasn't limited to Nintendo alone. Other companies in the gaming sector also experienced declines, with losses ranging from 4 to 6%. Global investors, wary of the potential price hikes and their effects on demand, pulled back from gaming stocks, contributing to the broader sell-off. About half of Nintendo's shares are held by foreign investors, making it more vulnerable to market fluctuations driven by global concerns. This sell-off reflects a broader trend of investors unwinding positions in Japanese gaming stocks, which had been among the best performers in Japan's equity market this year. The Solactive Japan Games and Animation Index had risen 14% through early March. However, the rise in tariffs and market uncertainty have led to a reversal in investor sentiment. Analysts suggest that the sector had become crowded and expensive, with concerns about higher costs and reduced consumer demand now weighing on stock prices. Business Bureau, WION World is One.
With that, it's a wrap on this edition of World DNA. But before we go, here's a look at all the climate stories which are making headlines across the globe. Thank you so much for joining us on WION World is One. Stay tuned.